What if the dead could leave a message, and it was never meant to be heard? The discovery of Menglong's final recording shattered everything we thought we knew about his mysterious death. Hidden deep within a corrupted file, his voice whispers from beyond, revealing fragments of fear, betrayal, and something far darker than anyone imagined. Each second of that recording pulls us closer to truth the world was never supposed to uncover. Let's dive in and unravel the chilling secrets together. And with a sound, barely audible, static-stained, and trembling with something that felt almost human. On the evening of March 22nd, months after Menglong's death, a technician at the Digital Forensics Bureau leaned closer to his headset. That the faint whisper he heard through the distortion couldn't possibly be what he thought it was. "If you're hearing this," the voice said, cracked and breathless, "I didn't make it." Silence, long, suffocating silence. The man pulled off his headphones, hands shaking. On his monitor, the file name glowed faintly, recording final MP3. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. That minute police reports claimed Menglong's heart had stopped. Menglong was the face of innocence in the entertainment world, a soft-spoken actor whose calm presence made audiences trust him instantly. He smiled easily, spoke carefully, and stayed away from scandal. Which was why, when his body was found on December 11th in his Seoul apartment, the world stopped believing in happy endings. Police called it suicide within 48 hours. The official statement cited exhaustion, depression, and sleeping pills. The autopsy never explained the bruising on his wrist, the small cut behind his ear, or the missing phone and laptop. To the fans who had followed him from his debut, it didn't make sense. He had just renewed 2 major contracts, spoken enthusiastically about a new drama, texted his manager tomorrow's shit will be great. Tomorrow never came. The more reporters dug, the stranger it became. Surveillance cameras in the hallway outside his apartment had been turned off at 2:30 a.m., exactly 17 minutes before the estimated time of death. The system's maintenance log had been deleted. The neighbor who reported smelling smoke claimed she saw someone tall leaving the floor, wearing a hood. Yet no footage existed. Still, the story the public received was tidy, a lonely celebrity, overwhelmed by pressure, gone too soon. For 3 months, that version stood unchallenged. Then the recording surfaced. The file had been buried in a corrupted section of Menglong's cloud backup, erased the night of his death. Engineers pieced it back together. They found 34 seconds of audio, a man breathing heavily, the low hum of an air conditioner, and words, fragmented, frightened, deliberate. They said, it was an accident. But accidents don't knock on your door twice. I didn't want to be a hero. After that, a metallic clang. Footsteps. A faint male voice, not his, murmuring, "Stop recording." Then static. Experts confirmed the authenticity of the voice through spectrographic analysis. It was him, no question. The police reopened the file for review. The question remained, who were they? News of the recovered audio spread like wildfire. Television networks replayed the haunting line, "I didn't want to be a hero," between montages of his smiling face. Hashtags exploded across social media, Menglong truth. The final recording, who are they? Fans dissected the file, slowing it down, filtering it, trying to extract clues. Some claimed to hear a second voice whisper too late. Others insisted they could make out the chime of an elevator, proof that someone had entered his apartment. Forensic linguists analyzed pauses, intonation, breathing rate. "He's terrified," one expert concluded on a late-night talk show. "He's not suicidal. He's warning someone." The case that had been closed was alive again. At the time of his death, Menglong had been attached to a film titled The Fallen Star, a big-budget production with powerful backers. Shooting had halted 6 months earlier after an on-set explosion killed a stunt performer. The incident was ruled accidental, but rumors of negligence swirled. Privately, friends said Menglong had been troubled. He'd begun collecting documents, keeping backups, recording conversations. He said the truth was heavier than fame. One assistant recalled, "I thought he was being poetic." Now, investigators wondered if those files were what he'd died for. 2 weeks after the first audio leak, another file was discovered on a damaged SD card recovered from a camera in his apartment. This time there was video. The image shook as if the device were held in trembling hands. Menglong's face appeared dimly lit by the glow of a laptop screen. His eyes darted toward the door. "They said the footage could ruin everything," he whispered. "But I kept a copy. I had to." A knock echoed. 3 times. Slow, deliberate. He turned off the light. The camera kept rolling. A voice outside the door, "You Menglong, open up. We just want to talk." He didn't answer. Another voice, colder, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Then the screen went black. The timestamp read 2:41 a.m. 6 minutes later, the recording stopped. 6 minutes before his death, investigators cross-checked call logs from his phone carrier. 3 incoming numbers between 1 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. had been wiped from the record. Tracing tower pings. Analysts narrowed the origin to a nearby industrial district, specifically a warehouse leased by the Fallen Star production company. A subpoena revealed an employee name linked to the same location, Heemin, production safety coordinator. Heemin vanished the day the new recording leaked. While police scrambled for evidence, the investigative magazine Red Carpet Revealed published an exposé titled "The Sound of Fear: Yu Menglong's Final Hours." The article compiled timelines, interviews, and transcripts from digital forensics teams. "We're not chasing tragedy," the editor wrote. "We're chasing silence, and who benefits from it." Public pressure soared. Within 48 hours, the Ministry of Culture announced an independent inquiry into the Fallen Star incident. But for every question answered, 2 more appeared. Audio specialists working with Red Carpet Revealed noticed something peculiar. In the background of the second recording, a rhythmic tapping, 3 short, 2 long. Morse code. When translated, it spelled SOS. He hadn't just been hiding. He was signaling. Further spectral analysis revealed overlapping frequencies that didn't match household devices. It was the electromagnetic signature of a professional camera, one used for film sets. Someone had brought production equipment into his apartment. The theory forming among investigators was chilling. Yu Menglong had recorded his own murder in progress. Within hours, television anchors spoke of industrial manslaughter and systemic corruption. Sponsors pulled funding. Fans transformed vigils into protests. Police raided the studio's offices and confiscated drives. One headline read, "The recording that resurrected justice." But not everyone celebrated. Anonymous threats flooded journalists' inboxes. One reporter's car was vandalized, another received a box containing a smashed recorder and a note, "Stop digging." Fear returned, but so did resolve. The chaos, one figure emerged quietly, Song Yiren, Menglong's closest co-star and rumored confidant. For weeks she'd avoided interviews. But when confronted outside her apartment, she said softly, "He told me someone would come for him. I thought he was exaggerating." She handed the reporters a small flash drive. "He gave me this 2 days before he died," she whispered. "He said, if I disappear, don't watch it alone." The drive contained another recording, shorter, calmer, more intimate. "Watching this. Yiren, please don't cry. I did what I could. The truth has to live somewhere. If not with me, then with you." He smiled faintly at the camera, then reached forward and ended the video. That image, his hand approaching the lens, became iconic. Printed across newspapers. And as the last gesture of defiance. 2 days later, investigators confirmed the unthinkable, traces of chloroform in his bloodstream. Suicide was now impossible. The case officially shifted to homicide. Arrest warrants followed for Heemin and 2 executives of the production company. Both denied involvement. Claiming Menglong had fabricated the files to gain attention. But the recovered stunt footage and timestamps destroyed their defense. In an emergency press conference, the chief prosecutor said, "The recordings left by the victim form an unbroken chain of evidence. In death, he has become his own witness." By the end of that week, millions tuned into live coverage of the reopened trial. Crowds held up posters reading "Truth has a voice." Radio stations played fragments of his recordings between songs. Each breath analyzed like scripture. For the first time in decades, the entertainment industry trembled. But for Red Carpet Revealed, the story wasn't over. The magazine's investigators had uncovered yet another layer, a folder in Menglong's recovered laptop labeled "Backup Final." Inside were encrypted files, of which bore a chilling title, 0247 End. When decrypted, it produced a single-frame video, a black screen with text appearing in white letters. "They think truth dies with me. It doesn't. The timestamp matched a moment of death exactly. Outside the courthouse, rain began to fall, soft, relentless, cleansing. Reporters looked up at the gray sky, hearing the echo of his recorded voice in their minds. If truth is buried, he had said, dig louder. And as the drops struck microphones and camera lenses, it sounded almost like applause. The rain never really stopped that week. It hung over the city like a bruise that refused to fade, soaking into the banners, the flowers, faces of those who refused to forget. At the courthouse steps, people waded through the downpour, holding candles inside paper cups, their light trembling against the wind. Somewhere in the crowd, a woman played one of Menglong's old recordings from her phone. The soft static, the half-breath before he spoke, it sounded like a ghost exhaling. Inside, the courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Reporters fought for space. Camera lenses pressed against the glass partition. The defendant sat motionless, the production coordinator, two executives, and a shadow of the studio that had once ruled the industry. The prosecutor played the recovered clips one by one. Whisper, every gasp, every knock on the door filled the speakers like thunder rolling across an open field. When the final clip ended, there was no sound at all. Even the judge's pen paused mid-air. The recording had become more than evidence, it was an indictment of an entire system. Outside the walls, the crowd began to chant his name. Not as mourning, but as defiance. For the next 6 weeks, the trial unfolded like a fever dream. Witnesses confessed to forged reports, to deleted files, to hush payments disguised as safety compensation. A former stunt coordinator broke down on the stand, admitting that he had been told to keep quiet about the accident that killed his colleague. He was supposed to die twice. The man said, eyes red. Once in that explosion, and once in silence. The defense tried to twist the narrative, claiming Menglong's paranoia had driven him to record imaginary threats. But each lie unraveled under the weight of digital proof. Metadata never forgets. The timestamps lined up. The geolocation matched. And the voices belonged to the men sitting behind the glass. When one executive muttered that Menglong had been ungrateful, the gallery erupted. Song Yiren attended every session, silent beneath a black veil. On the final day she was called as a witness. The room held its breath as she walked to the stand. Her voice was steady but raw when she spoke. He told me once that fame is the loudest silence of all. He wasn't afraid to die. He was afraid that the truth would die with him. The judge's gavel struck like thunder. Guilty. Sentences were long. The reputations ruined. The industry shaken. Yet when the verdict was read, Yiren didn't smile. Justice, she realized, felt nothing like victory. It felt like exhaustion. At night, she returned to his apartment for the first time since the funeral. The lights remained off, she preferred it that way. Dust floated in the air like ash. She sat where his desk once stood and played the final recording again. The familiar hiss filled the room, followed by his voice, calm now, almost peaceful. If you're hearing this, he said. Maybe the story reached the right ears. She whispered back, it did. Across the city, televisions replayed the verdict. The story had consumed a nation. What it left behind was something larger than outrage. Production companies issued public apologies. Regulations were rewritten. Safety officers were hired not as tokens but as guardians. The Ministry of Culture announced a new clause: every set must store duplicate safety footage off-site. Untouchable even by producers. They called it a Menglong protocol. Yet the change that mattered most was quieter. On film sets, assistants began labeling folders not with project titles but with phrases like backup truth or record everything. Actors carried small recorders in their pockets. Someone joked, "Are you afraid of ghosts?" They answered, "Only the ones still alive." Months passed. The noise faded. But one evening, Red Carpet Revealed received another anonymous message. Threats this time, just a link and a line of text. He left something for her. The link led to a secure drive containing an unreleased file. A video barely 60 seconds long. It showed the interior of a small cafe lit by afternoon sun. Menglong sat at a table, wearing a gray sweater, smiling softly. The date stamp was 3 weeks before his death. "People think recordings are about proof," he said, looking straight into the lens. "They're not. They're about memory. Proof dies when courts close. Memory lasts until the last person who remembers does." He paused, tapping the table rhythmically. 3 short, too long. If I ever disappear, promise me you'll remember the sound, not the noise. Camera turned slightly, revealing Song Yiren behind it, laughing. You're talking like an old man, she teased. Grinned. Maybe old men know how stories end. The clip faded to white. When Red Carpet revealed released it, the world watched again. But this time there was no fury. No tears, only quiet. People shared the video with captions that read he's finally home. In the months that followed, Yiren withdrew from film. She traveled, acting to children, and visited his grave once every month. Fans left letters written on cassette tapes instead of paper. Tiny reels filled with whispers of gratitude. They said. We'll keep listening. The industry moved on, as industries always do. But something fundamental had changed. Fame felt smaller now. Truth felt heavier. Cameras still rolled, but they rolled with conscience. When accidents happened, reports were immediate. When lies surfaced, they were challenged. No one dared to silence the evidence again. A year later, a memorial was held at the National Theater. The stage was empty except for a single microphone in a beam of light. Yiren stepped onto the stage, his old recorder on the stand, and pressed play. They think truth dies with me. It doesn't. The audience rose to its feet. 10 minutes, no one clapped. No one cheered, just silence. The kind that listens. After the ceremony, the editor of Red Carpet revealed approached Yiren. You gave him back his voice, he said. Shook her head. He never lost it. We just finally learned to hear. Outside, the city hummed with life again. Billboards that once sold perfection now bore public service slogans. Record the truth. Protect the truth. On bus stops, children pointed at his picture and asked their parents who he was. Answers varied: actor, whistleblower. But every answer ended with the same word: truth. Late that night, Yiren sat by her window, scrolling through old messages. One notification blinked, a new file uploaded to her cloud by an unknown sender. Its name, Afterlight WAV. She hesitated, then pressed play. The sound was faint but unmistakable, waves crashing, gulls crying, and his voice. Is a lullaby. If truth is buried, dig louder. And when you find it, don't be afraid of what it costs. Recording ended with laughter, his, carefree, alive. She smiled through tears. Always did know how to end a story, she whispered. Other part of the city. The editor finished writing the last line of a retrospective article. It read. He recorded because he believed in echoes. He saved the file, switched off the lights, and listened to the rain. Somewhere in the distance. Thunder rolled, 3 short, too long. The world had moved on. Yet the sound remained. Woven into the collective conscience like a code, the rhythm of defiance. The pulse of memory. Menglong's phone now sat in a museum display. Cracked screen frozen on its final timestamp, 2:47 a.m. Visitors pressed a button beside it and heard his last words looped through hidden speakers. Some walked away shaken, others smiled. Reaction was another heartbeat in the story he'd left behind. One evening, a child pointed at the phone and asked his mother, "Why is everyone so quiet when they listen?" Crouched down and whispered, "Because that's what respect sounds like." The child nodded, slipped on the provided headphones, and pressed play. The room filled with static. A calm voice saying, "The truth doesn't need a pulse." Outside the museum, night had fallen. Streetlights flickered like tiny recording dots against the dark. Somewhere in that rhythm, the story continued, not as tragedy, but as testament. The rain began again, soft and endless, erasing footprints yet keeping the echo alive. That sound, the mix of storm, static, heartbeat, the world finally understood what he had tried to say all along. Truth never dies, it only waits to be heard. There are stories that end when the sound fades. And there are stories like his, stories that keep breathing between the static, waiting for someone brave enough to listen. Menglong's voice, fragile yet fearless, crossed a boundary between life and death, not to haunt, but to remind. He recorded because he believed silence was never safety. Because he knew that truth, no matter how quiet, outlives everything built to bury it. Now the tape has stopped spinning, but the echo remains. Every whisper that once trembled with fear has become a heartbeat of courage in others. Every secret he exposed has turned into light somewhere, On a film set, in a newsroom. Inside the conscience of those who watched him go. That is what immortality truly means. To leave behind a sound that refuses to die. To everyone who has followed this story to its final line, thank you. Thank you for listening. Not just to the noise, but to the quiet moments between it. Thank you for believing that storytelling still matters. When the truth feels too heavy to hold. This story is dedicated to all who record, reveal, and remember. To every artist, journalist, witness who dares to tell the truth when silence would be easier. To those who keep the cameras rolling when the world demands they shut them off. May Yu Menglong's story remind you that courage doesn't always roar, sometimes. It whispers through static. And may you never forget, truth doesn't need a pulse to stay alive. Thank you for reading. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for keeping the echo alive.